into the Fade. I'm Clay Travis. She is Kelly Stewart. Happy New Year, belatedly, to everyone out there. Merry Christmas to all of you. I've been on the road. I've got a great tan. Managed to avoid getting stuck in the Caribbean after the Venezuela raid, but I'm back now stateside, and we are getting ready for the college football playoff and the NFL. Kelly, I'm super excited. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 straight days of playoff football. And it all begins on Thursday with Ole Miss. Let's just kind of go in order of the games for everybody out there. Ole Miss going up against Miami. Miami, incredible win over Ohio State. Ole Miss, phenomenal win over Georgia. Both of those games were electric, lots of fun to watch. Trinidad Chambliss was unstoppable down the stretch. Carson Beck so far has been good. Carson Beck, he has not turned the ball over an appreciable amount. Defense for Miami has been playing lights out. Miami around a field goal favorite, 3.5 or so, I believe. Kelly, what do you expect to see in this game? I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take Ole Miss. And we don't even know who's going to be coaching Ole Miss officially. But what do you see? I think you were a Mario Cristobal hater, if I don't forget. And now he is 1 game away from playing for the national championship. How are you playing this one? How locked in do you think the lines are? They're pretty firm. None of these are moving that much. What say you about this game on Thursday?
I'm not a Cristobal hater. I just know that he's far overmatched by inferior opponents way too many times. And I love those double-digit underdogs, particularly on Friday nights. Those seem to be really good for Mario. So this one being on the Thursday is probably good luck for him. That being said, I'm not sure I want to step in front of this Miami defense. Clay, if you remember, I had a futures bet on the Georgia Bulldogs 10-1 after they lost that regular season game to Alabama. I said, all right, I like this Georgia team. I think they're going to bounce back here in a big way. You remember Ole Miss's only loss was to Georgia. And I'd like to blame Kirby Smart and his offensive coordinator for their conservative play calling. Thank you, guys. That was absolute and utter BS. That being said, Ole Miss gets to advance. There's not anything about either one of these teams that says, I can't wait to put my hard-earned money here, right? And historically, the Fiesta Bowl has been awful for Miami. They lost 4 times there, including 2 national title games. Fine, 1987 versus Penn State doesn't count. 2003 versus Ohio State. But I think it's really interesting how some of these teams don't fare well outside of their geographic region. If you remember, Miami didn't even leave the state of Florida till November this year. But they went on the road. They beat up on A&M, if you want to call it that. That was just the worst game that I've seen in a very long time. But I still have in the back of my mind this 2-loss team that lost to Louisville, as I mentioned on that Friday night, and SMU. They didn't get to go to the ACC title game because of it, and they still got in. So congratulations to them getting in over Notre Dame due to the head-to-head. But I'm not sure they should be a 3.5-point favorite here, Clay. Last week, they were 9-point underdogs versus Ohio State. I talked to everybody who does power ratings, said, hey, the Buckeyes are the play. And I said, I'm not laying 9.5 here with Ohio State. There's absolutely no way. And, man, Carson Beck, as you mentioned, looked good. 13-1 ratio in his last 6 games. He has been good, Carson Beck, as you like to say. As far as the Rebs go, my main concern and why I'm probably not going to get to the window is exactly what you said. No Lane Kiffin, fine. But now these guys have been given an ultimatum. Are you coming to LSU or not? And if you're coming to LSU, you got to get here quick. And that kind of concerns me. You know, not playing with your head coach is one thing. Not playing with your coordinators and special teams coaches and so forth is another. Chambliss, absolutely lights out against Georgia. So kudos to him. 23-1 ratio. But this is a tough test against the Miami physical front four. I'm going to give the slight nod to Ole Miss here, catching a little bit of too many points against a Miami team that we know can falter against inferior foes.
What about okay? So I'm giving Ole Miss plus 3.5, the over 52.5. By the way, I'm looking at tickets while I'm talking to you too, because I'm taking my boys to go to the Alabama Vanderbilt basketball game a little bit later today. So I'm starting to pivot a little bit into college football as college basketball as well, even while college football season's still going. Friday, you got the rematch of a game I believe that took place in October. Indiana went on the road, beat Oregon in Alton Stadium. Fernando Mendoza and company. I don't know if you saw. Some people had some not very charitable things to say to me, Kelly, after I said that Alabama was going to be beating Indiana in the Rose Bowl, and Alabama was destroyed. Fernando Mendoza played lights out. The Indiana defense has shut down Ohio State. They have now shut down Alabama. A lot of attention for the offense of Curt Cignetti, but the defense has been every bit as good this year in the big games as the offense has, if not better. Meanwhile, Oregon, really, look, I know that JMU put up a lot of points on them, but that game was decided early. And then they went out and shut out Texas Tech. I like the under, and I'm going to take Indiana. I feel like this is going to be something like 21-10-ish. I like Indiana to win. I like the under in this game that's taking place, I believe, in Atlanta, in the Peach Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, whatever they call it now. What is your perspective? What is your side here?
It's really tough because I like Curt Cignetti. I know a lot of people don't, because he's kind of got this look on his face like he hasn't smiled since 1992. But I like coaches like this. I like coaches like I like my president. And in fact, I told the K-State athletic director that in Dublin. I want a mean coach. You know why? Because they win football games. And that's what Cignetti has done his entire career, whether it was at James Madison or now at Indiana. He gets the most from his players because he is hard on them. And his first year at Indiana was great, because I'm an underdog better. And I said, I can't wait to bet on this team week in and week out. And then this year, I bet against them 3 times. I went 2-1 against the spread, but couldn't get the outright win with Illinois or Iowa. And it was so frustrating betting against this man. And I thought, all right, this is interesting, because usually when a team becomes the hunted, right? They're the hunter, the underdog, they're hungry. They want to go out and hit that target. When you have the target on your back, sometimes that tends to shift, but it hasn't for Indiana, right? Indiana was a 7-point underdog in Eugene and went in there and won 30-20. And now that line has shifted completely, almost in the opposite direction. Indiana is now a decent favorite here over a field goal. And you kind of have to wonder, but again, I don't think I want to bet against Curt Cignetti. I'm not saying he's going to cover, but I definitely think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to win the national championship. You mentioned that Ducks defense that held Texas Tech to 215 yards and a shutout. Well, did we talk about how bad Morton was? Oh my goodness. As somebody who had a very, very, very small ticket long shot to start the season on Texas Tech at 100-1, I could not have dreamed of a worse performance by the Red Raiders. That was abysmal. I'm going to give the Ducks a little bit of credit, but I'm not going to give them that much credit. I do really like Fernando Mendoza. I think that he leads this offense with a lot of poise and a lot of grit. I think that he is the better quarterback on the field. And you mentioned Indiana's defense just allowing 10 points per game, 253 yards per game, and holding teams 110 yards per game below their average on the season. I don't blame you for liking the under here. I like Indiana. I hope they can get the nice, easy win and cover for everybody, because that's where my money's going to be.
All right, let's go into the NFL. Thursday night college, Friday night college. Saturday, we start with the early game in Carolina. People in Houston are like, oh my goodness, we're not the early game for the first time ever. Rams on the road against the Panthers. Rams looked like a Super Bowl favorite just a few weeks ago. They have not closed well. They've had issues with health. Obviously, with Devontae Adams, he's supposedly going to be back healthy. I'm taking the Panthers as a double-digit home underdog in this one, just because the Rams have looked wobbly to me. No one respects the Panthers, but Bryce Young has made enough plays for me to be impressed somewhat with him. I expected him to be far better, but he's played a little bit better than maybe we anticipated. Are you taking the Rams as a big double-digit favorite? Are you taking the Panthers, or are you running and hiding from this game?
I don't know if I'm going to run and hide. Carolina hasn't impressed me that much, and I shouldn't say anything bad about them, Clay. I came right in here. I said, here's who's going to win the division, the NFC South. It's the Carolina Panthers 4-1, and I got to cash that ticket, but only by default, thanks to the Falcons. Carolina did themselves no favors last week versus Tampa Bay, and I just wasn't that impressed with them. Now, I will say, last time these two played, the Rams were also a 10-point favorite in Carolina. Matthew Stafford pissed off all of the survivor backers because he threw 2 interceptions right out of the gate, including the one in the red zone as the Rams were going in for the touchdown. And then the other one was a pick 6. It was just absolutely awful. I don't know if they were looking ahead in that game, if they didn't care in that game. But I will say this, the Rams have not fared well going east all season long. This is not a team I'm looking to lay double digits with. If we're going through this entire 6-game slate, I would say this is the game I care the least about. Sure, I'd love to back Carolina as a home dog, but this team finished the season with a minus 69 point differential, the lowest of any playoff team since my 2011 Broncos. I'm not sure I'm going to get to the window with either one of these teams, but I'll give the head nod to your pick on the Panthers.
Next game, Packers-Bears. Bears never, this is a star-crossed franchise. Caleb Williams, they've won a lot of close games. I think it's fair to say, Kelly, Packers fans have to be a little bit disappointed after they made the move with Micah Parsons, tried to put everything together. You just don't, I know Malik Willis has looked good as a backup, but you just haven't been able to kind of really get your flow going there. I know you know the Packers well. What happens here? I'm going to take the Bears as a home underdog. I think they find a way to get a win. What say you?
You know, it's interesting. You said about the Packers fans. I live with one. His best friend that lives down the street is one. And I was watching this game. What was it? December 7th in Lambeau. They played each other 3 times, basically within 6-week stretch, 5-week stretch, right? They got the cover there because they grabbed the INT as Caleb Williams was driving down the field. And these guys are just sitting there hating their lives because that's what has been happening to Packers fans for the last few years. First, it was the Vikings that plagued them. Then it was the Lions that plagued them. And now it's the Bears. I think this entire division is cursed to an extent. It is just long suffering all the way around. The Green Bay Packers have suffered the least, though, so they get no sympathy for me. I will say this, keep in mind, bad weather in Chicago. And what affects the total the most? The wind. Not snow, the wind. So 45.5, we're going to see this one come down. I guarantee it comes Saturday. Yeah, we are filming on Wednesday. I am not a meteorologist, so please do not hold this to me, but keep an eye on the weather. Packers have been dealing with injuries all season long, right? Offensive line, tight ends, couple guys on defense. It has been bad. I think Chicago's rushing attack is going to be the difference maker here, right? Number 5 in EPA per rush attempt, playing against the 20th ranked Green Bay rushing defense. Bears, number 2 in rushing success rate, Packers 15th. If the weather makes it difficult for both teams to be able to pass the ball, i.e. high winds, sleet, gross things like that, I think it bodes well for the Bears. If that weather holds off, I think Green Bay wins this game. It is a coin toss. It's pretty much a pick 'em across the board right now. I think Jordan Love playing after coming back from concussion will have a bone to pick on how they lost that game just a few short weeks ago there in Chicago. I know Green Bay has been limping into the postseason, but I think that kind of equates to there being some value here. But again, keep an eye on the weather because I think it's going to completely alter how this game is played, whether it's on the ground or through the air.
Do you buy Jordan Love? You've known him for a long time as a Kansas State person, obviously. He can't stay healthy, But do you buy him as a guy that can win a Super Bowl? Like, leave aside this individual game, leave aside the weather, just based on what you've seen from him. Is he a Super Bowl winning quarterback?
Sure, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Look, Malik Willis, in all of his glory over the last couple of weeks, hasn't been all that bad. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but what you want from your backup is not to be a massive drop off from your starter. And he's not. And I think that kind of tells us a tale about Jordan Love. I don't think he has ice in his veins. Clay, I mentioned what I want from a head coach. Well, I want something pretty similar, right? I want a quarterback who can lead. I want a quarterback who is liked in the locker room. And I want a quarterback who can make the throws, the decisions, whatever it is, when that clock strikes 2 minutes and you're down, anywhere from under a touchdown and you need them to make the game-winning play. I'm not sure that's Jordan Love. Have we seen him do it? Sure. But I need a guy who can do that consistently, and I'm not sure that's Jordan Love.
All right, let's go into Bills Jags, which I think is maybe going to be the most fun game of the entire wild card weekend. Bills are a 1.5 point favorite on the road against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence and that offense under Liam Cohen has been playing lights out. I mean, we have a Trevor Lawrence renaissance going on right now in Jacksonville. Bills gave away their chance to host home playoff games. They're basically done in Orchard Park. New stadium coming there. Over, under. I like the over. I'm going to be honest. I don't think the Bills defense has shown that they have the ability to stop really anybody consistently. Jags defense has given up a lot of points over the course of the season. I think Josh Allen's going to put up points. I like the Bills to win. I like the over. What say you, Kelly?
So you mentioned Trevor Lawrence and his resurgence this year since making the playoffs in 2023, right? Didn't make them last year, didn't look great, having a great season this year. Here's going to be the argument. Over the second half of the season, who has Jacksonville beaten? The Raiders, the Cardinals, the Jets, the Titans twice, Colts twice without Daniel Jones. It gets a little convoluted there as far as the strength of schedule goes. But I will say this. I have not been impressed with Buffalo this year. I do think Josh Allen is the better quarterback of the two. I think this is going to be a great game. As you mentioned, I think it's going to come down to ultimately a game-winning field goal. And if I have to bet on one kicker, which we all know how I feel about NFL kickers, Loop will tell you about that for the Ravens. But Jacksonville's Cam Little, yes, he is by far the best kicker. Made a 67-yarder last week versus the Titans. This kid is an absolute stud. Buffalo possibly down to their third string kicker. Matt Prater got hurt last week versus the Jets, so keep an eye on it there. I think Jacksonville here catching a 1.5 here at home. I would love to tease this. I cannot. There's nothing to tease it with, and I do not tease totals. But I think this could be a Jaguars squeak out a late kick to win. Remember, if he's anywhere midfield, this kid can make it. And all we need is Trevor Lawrence to get him there.
All right. 49ers, Eagles. I'm taking the 49ers road underdog. We mentioned earlier the Rams, a team that kind of stumbled down the stretch. I'm sure you watched as the Seahawks went in and frankly dominated against the 49ers with the number one overall seed in the NFC on the table. Having said that, Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, their issue has typically, Kyle Shanahan in particular, has come in the Super Bowl. He's had the best team setups ready. I'm not sold on the Eagles. I know they're the defending Super Bowl champs, but they've been a bit wobbly too. I like the 49ers as the underdog here. How about you?
Yeah, actually, I have Super Bowl tickets on both these teams. I bet San Fran to start the season at 20-1. That ticket was dead on arrival in October. By the time that Purdy was hurt, by the time that Kittle was hurt, now Fred Warner's out, Trent Williams is hurt. It has just been an awful year for San Francisco backers, but they're in the playoffs and now they just have to go win at Philadelphia. And Philadelphia has looked offensively inept. I've been taking Jalen Hurts passing yards for the last 4 weeks under Clay because why not? They're not allowing him to throw the ball. They're just running it and doing just enough to get a win. Well, they didn't last week because they decided we don't really care about the 2 seed. So we're just going to sit everybody. And I thought, hey, they could probably still beat, the Washington Commanders, right? No, didn't matter. You could tell they didn't care. They were already in playoff mode. Speaking of playoff mode, the Eagles have not lost a home playoff game under Sirianni. And in those 5 wins, their margin of victory is 21 points per game, Clay. I don't think that I can touch San Francisco with a 10-foot pole here. I was not impressed with them in that absolute utter rock fight versus Seattle. I had them in teasers and they couldn't even get that done for me. I mean, Purdy got hurt. They said it was a stinger. It sure looked like a lot more than a stinger, right? He's been hurt all season long. Not to mention, speaking on the injury front, guess who Philadelphia is getting back this week? Lane Johnson. And he is one of the best offensive players on that team. He means so much to that team from a leadership perspective. I think you have to lay it here with Philadelphia. I think the 4.5 is very telling of how this game's going to go.
So we're on opposite sides there. Chargers plus the points at the Pats. Chargers about a 3.5 point underdog. Pats 3.5 point favorite. Patriots along with your Broncos, one of the great, and I would say the Seahawks, one of the great stories, the Jags, unexpected stories of this season so far in the NFL as we get into Wild Card Weekend. Chargers just haven't ever been able to really get over the proverbial hump, right? This is the story overall of everything. They lose close games. They brought in Jim Harbaugh to try to change the overall trajectory. Do they have the ability in your mind to go on the road at Foxborough, year one, Mike Vrabel, Drake May, probably the MVP, and find a way to get a win here? Yes or no? How do you play it?
Clay, you accused me of being a Mario Cristobal Miami hater. Apparently, you haven't seen my New England tweets calling these guys frauds way back in September. I said, fine, I can't wait to bet against you guys in the Patriots, in the playoffs. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Clay, this is the first Patriots home playoff game in 6 years. I know that sounds crazy because for a better part of my 20s and 30s, Brady and Belichick made my life an AFC hell. I can't believe it's been 6 years, but here we go. Justin Herbert, though, 0-2 in the wild card round in his playoff career. It's not been impressive. I haven't been impressed with Jim Harbaugh so far. I think he's a little too conservative in the NFL and relies way too much on his defense, right? You can only just allow so many dink and dunks down the field before you get beat. It gets frustrating when you are laying points with the Chargers, but taking points with the Chargers versus a very overhyped New England team is considerably different, especially with this Chargers team that is putting a lot more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Ready for this? Drake May sacked 47 times this year, pressured 232 times, second most in the league. You got to think that Jim Harbaugh is going to make his life an absolute hell. When these two played last year, May went 12 of 22, 117 passing yards. I think we see more of the same. I like the game under here, and I like the Chargers to go into New England and get a win.
An outright win. Interesting. I took the Chargers plus the points because I do feel like Justin Herbert is going to get some redemption here. He was not very good, am I right? On the road against the Texans, played very poorly last year. I think that they are going to have more success. That was last year, right? I'm getting old, all the years run together, but I think it was last year that he didn't play well.
Yes, because the year prior, he went into Jacksonville and they blew a 27-0 lead. I went to bed. I was on Jacksonville. I was like, I hate this team. I'm going to bed. And I woke up and I go, how did I win that football game? Apparently I missed a great game.
Texans, okay, final game. We're going all the wild card games Thursday, starting with college football. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 straight days of games. Texans at the Steelers. Amazing Sunday night football ending with the Steelers because of the janked right field goal, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Now you got John Harbaugh having been fired, and the result of this is instead of a game taking place in Baltimore with the Texans going on the road to take on Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and the Ravens are in a state of flux as they look for a new coach. We still don't know what Mike Tomlin wants to do necessarily going forward, but the Texans, who I would say it's fair, have been under the radar. C.J. Stroud didn't start off playing very well. They've now kind of caught their stride. On the road against the Steelers. Steelers are the home underdog. I like the under in this one, Kelly, and I think the Steelers win as the outright home underdog. Aaron Rodgers, one more win at least in the playoffs. Are you with me, against me on that take?
With you, but I want to give a little credit to D'Amico Ryans first, right? He kept the ship afloat. CJ Stroud missed 3 games in the middle of the season as things kind of started to go off the rails. Davis Mills, great backup quarterback, filled in nicely. But then you have to look at recent form. And I took the Texans in Survivor and got too much pressure against teams named the Raiders. They allowed 20 points to the Cardinals, 30 last week to Indianapolis, where Riley Leonard threw for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first career start. Were they bored? Were they on cruise control? I don't know what to make of this defense, and that makes it really concerning. Texans have some injuries there, so keep in mind on that defensive front as well. 4 of the Steelers' last 5 games have gone over the total, Clay, so be careful on that under. Also, keep an eye on the weather there in Pittsburgh come Monday. I know it's way too many days away, but it's Pittsburgh in January. We have seen some awful storms roll through there with only a couple days notice. I'm with you. I would rather take the quarterback with tons of playoff experience here as a home underdog. Now, Clay, this game is 3 at Square Books and 3.5 at Sharp Books. I think that tells you something that you need to know. If you like Pittsburgh, if you take a 3, you should quit betting. If you like Pittsburgh, 3.5 is the only line available to you. You search high and low until you get it, because 3 is by far the most key number, the most important number in the NFL. So again, if you like Pittsburgh, you better get 3.5. And if you like Houston, you better not lay more than 3. I lean towards Pittsburgh here, and I also lean towards the over.
All right, I'm taking 3.5. Anything else you think people should know for Wild Card Weekend or college football that we haven't hit? I think this is maybe the best weekend of the year for college and pro football when you talk about 6 different wild card games in the NFL, 2 in the college football. It should be an awesome weekend.
Yeah, Clay, we have 16 games left, 3 college football, 13 NFL, and then it's over until August. So cherish it. Be happy, even if all your futures bets are dead on arrival in college football. We only got a few games, and bet smart. You don't need to bet all these games. Like I said, you can have an opinion. You can bet your buddies a case of beer, but these lines are tight. The bookmakers know what they're doing this time of year, so keep it under wraps and be smart.
Amen. I'm Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart. We'll be back with you next week for what I think is probably the most exciting weekend typically of the year in the NFL, the divisional round playoff games. Not as many of them, but that is usually pretty awesome as well. We'll break all those down for you next week, and we'll give you a little bit of an early preview for whatever the college football national title game is going to be. Happy New Year. Let's have some fun this weekend. 5 straight days of football. Enjoy. Let's see you next week on The Fade.